Fueled by Deathcast.
Yeah. So let's go all the way back then. I mean, you started playing in the late 80s. And what I always love asking this question of musicians, what made you pick up the bass? Where did that begin for you?
It was most likely just kind of out of convenience, the band needed a bass player kind of thing.
I'll do it.
Because, I used to always want to be Ace Frehley. I was jumping on my bed with a tennis racket and, Love Gun and stuff.
Yeah.
Guitar is sexy. That's what you want to play, Drums and bass, you kind of, it's almost like the goalie in hockey or, the last guy picked on the team kind of thing.
Yeah.
But actually, I love it, I just kind of graduated to that when I first started playing and I actually really enjoy playing bass.
Yeah. So you cut your teeth, you start playing, was your first band Death?
No, it was actually Massacre.
Massacre was first.
My best friend kind of started the band, Bill Andrews, and at some point the bass player they had at the time was released, let go. And I was there at every practice from day one, so I knew all the songs already. So he just called me up and said, hey, bring your bass over here. We got a spot for you. So I went over and, I played in Massacre for about 9 months. And then, it's real deep, convoluted history. But we, the guitar player, myself, and the drummer went over to Death. They had just recorded their first album. And Chuck didn't have a lineup because he moved back to Orlando from California. So we kind of joined forces, Massacre and Chuck, and we toured for Scream Bloody Gore, and we did all the next couple albums, and then went back to Massacre for a couple years. Did 6 Feet for a while.
Yeah.
And then now into Obituary.
Yeah. So. Back in those days with Massacre and Death, was it harder to get, not necessarily get the word out, because we did talk about social media, but was it harder to get the fan base growing because it was metal itself was such a new thing. We were, and death metal itself coming from the Death era,
Well, a lot of what helped a lot of that was tape trading back in the day.
Right.
A demo back then was really important, because labels just weren't signing people left and right. So you put a demo out, and everyone in the underground traded that demo, so that's how the word got out, and that's what Massacre did. Put 2 demos out in 86, and became a cult following. It was, those demos are classics, and from there, it made it a lot easier to get signed later on. We tried, Massacre didn't get signed initially early on, because we did the Death thing for a while, but then when we went back to Massacre, Earache Records signed us immediately, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned, in between and parallel to all that, you also started playing for 6 Feet Under, and you played for 6 Feet Under for, I think, over a decade, right?
16 years.
16 years, my gosh. And that was, from the early 90s into, almost the modern era of metal. Yeah. And 6 Feet Under was one of those first bands that really started to be part of the conversation. Metal was always the underground, was always the, they're the guys in the dark, corner. But with 6 Feet Under, it really was these types of bands like Hatebreed and that kind of thing, where it was starting to be part of the popular conversation. Yeah. What was that like?
Well, even today, metal, death metal and all of its offshoots is still a bastard child of music.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's looked at as like, let's just not talk about that. Right. It's horrible. It's terrible. That's how mainstream looks at it. But 6 Feet early on, we kind of, I came from Death. You had, Chris from Cannibal, Alan West from Obituary, whatever. People kind of thought, it's going to be, fast like Cannibal with some killer technical death riff. No, right. We on purpose sat out to, let's just make this dark, heavy, groovy, simplified, where you can kind of digest all of it and you understand what it is and everything.
Yeah.
And that was the focus early on, and I think we were able to accomplish that. But kind of later years that I was in 6 Feet, that kind of got watered down, and we tried to go in different areas. And